The hum of the cargo ship's engines faded as Ethan docked at the small trading post. It was a quiet, half-forgotten place, orbiting a dim red star on the far edge of known space. The docking bay doors creaked as they closed, sealing him in, with the faint smell of oil, metal, and recycled air. He powered down his controls, grabbed his supply list, and stepped onto the station's worn metal floor. He had been here before, but it was never lively. Most travelers only stopped to refuel or exchange small cargo loads. This station had no luxury shops, no bright lights, no music, only the quiet trade of those who wanted to be left alone. Ethan walked toward the market corridor, passing a few traders who barely glanced his way. His plan was simple: deliver 3 crates of preserved rations to the station quartermaster, collect payment, and leave within the hour. He liked to stay moving. The outer rim had its dangers, and lingering too long in one place could invite trouble. As he entered the market, his eyes adjusted to the dim yellow lighting. A few stalls lined the narrow space, their shelves holding mechanical parts, dried, food, and low-grade fuel cells. Behind the counters stood tired merchants, exchanging quiet words with their customers. It was all routine, until he saw her. She stood near the far wall, almost hidden in the shadows. A small alien girl, no more than 12 years old in human terms, with thin arms and legs that trembled as she shifted her weight. Her skin was a pale lavender, almost gray from lack of nourishment. Her clothes were tattered and too large for her small frame, as if they had once belonged to someone older. In her arms, wrapped in a piece of worn cloth, was a smaller bundle, moving ever so slightly. Her eyes met Ethan's for a moment, and he noticed how large they were, reflecting the market's dull light. She hesitated, then took a small step toward him. Her voice, when it came, was barely more than a whisper. "Just milk for my sister, please," she said, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I'll pay you back when I'm grown." Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard her right. "Milk?" he asked softly. She nodded quickly, clutching the bundle closer. "She hasn't eaten in days. Please." He could hear the desperation in her voice. People around them continued their business, ignoring the exchange entirely. No one seemed to notice her, or maybe they chose not to. Ethan felt a weight in his chest. He knew the outer rim could be cruel, but seeing it so clearly in front of him always hit hard. Without another word, Ethan walked to a nearby food stall. 2 bottles of nutrient milk, he told the merchant, who barely looked at him. The merchant's eyes flicked toward the girl, and then back to Ethan. "You sure you want to waste credits on her?" the merchant muttered. "That one's trouble. Her kind always brings it." Ethan ignored the comment and placed the credits on the counter. The merchant shrugged and handed over 2 sealed bottles. Ethan turned and crouched in front of the girl, holding them out. "Here," he said simply. She hesitated, her eyes darting between the bottles and his face, as if expecting a trick. When she finally took them, her hands trembled so much she almost dropped one. She quickly unwrapped the bundle in her arms, revealing a tiny alien infant, its skin even paler than hers. The baby stirred weakly, small fingers curling in the air. The girl opened one bottle and guided it to the infant's mouth. The baby drank slowly at first, then with more urgency, tiny gulps echoing in the quiet market corner. Ethan watched, saying nothing, giving her the moment she clearly needed. When the baby finally pulled away, the girl rewrapped her and looked back at Ethan. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll pay you back when I'm grown." Ethan shook his head slightly. "You don't owe me anything." But she looked like she didn't believe him. Her eyes held a quiet determination, as if the promise was something she had already carved deep inside herself. "Where are your parents?" Ethan asked gently. Her expression changed. The determination faded, replaced by something darker: fear. She looked away. "Gone," she said. Pirates took them. Took everyone. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had heard about raids on Outer Rim colonies. Pirates swept in, stripped everything of value, and left survivors scattered or enslaved. The station wasn't far from several such attacks. "And you've been here since then?" he asked. She nodded. "I hide. I try to find food, but it's getting harder. People, they don't want to help." Ethan glanced around. Indeed, the other merchants kept their eyes on their work, pretending not to see. Some even looked away when they noticed him talking to her. It wasn't just indifference. It was fear. They didn't want to cross whoever had done this to her. He sighed. "What's your name?" "Kaylee," she said softly. "And your sister?" "Lena." Ethan took a deep breath. "Kaylee, you can't keep living like this. It's not safe." She looked at him with a guarded expression. "I know, but I don't have anywhere else to go." Ethan glanced toward the docking bay in the distance. He had cargo to deliver, schedules to keep. Taking her with him would slow him down. It might even attract trouble. But as he looked at her again, this fragile girl standing between him and a crowd of people who wouldn't lift a finger, he knew the choice he would make. "Finish feeding your sister," he said finally. "Then come with me. We'll talk." Her eyes widened slightly. "You'd help us?" "Yeah," he said. "But first I need to know more. We can't walk into this blind." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay." As Ethan turned to leave the market, he felt eyes on him. Someone was watching, someone who didn't like what they were seeing. Ethan led Kaylee through the market's side corridors, avoiding the main walkways. He didn't want more eyes on them than necessary. The hum of ventilation fans echoed above, and the air smelled faintly of rust. Kaylee followed quietly, holding her sister close, the baby resting in the fold of her worn cloth wrap. Her steps were small and careful, as though she feared making too much noise. They reached a narrow passage that led toward the station's quieter sections. Ethan stopped near a supply storage door and keyed it open. Inside was a small maintenance room with a bench, a water unit, and a single flickering light. It wasn't much, but it was private. "Sit here," Ethan said, motioning to the bench. Kaylee sat down slowly, eyes flicking between the door and Ethan. She kept her sister close, almost protectively shielding her. Ethan poured a cup of water from the wall unit and handed it to her. "Drink," he said. She hesitated, then took a careful sip. It was clear she wasn't used to kindness from strangers. "Kaylee," Ethan began, "I need you to tell me what happened. Everything. If I'm going to help you, I need to understand." Her lips pressed together, and for a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. But then she lowered her gaze and spoke in a quiet voice. "My home. It was a small colony on a green world. Not rich. Not strong. We lived far from the main star, roots, so no one bothered us. Then the pirates came." She paused, her fingers tightening on the cloth around her sister. "They came in the night," she continued. "Ships with black hulls and red markings. They fired at the colony towers first, so no one could call for help. Then they landed. They took food, machines, tools, and people. They said anyone strong enough to work would be taken. My mother told me to hide in the root cellar with Lena. She told me to stay silent, no matter what." Her voice trembled slightly, but she kept speaking. "I heard the shouting, the screams, then the engines, as the ships left. When I came out, the houses were broken, fires were everywhere, and my parents, they were gone. Most people were gone." Ethan listened without interrupting. He had heard similar stories before, but each one felt heavier than the last. "How did you get here?" he asked. "A trader came to the ruins 2 days later. He took a few of us to this station, said we'd be safer here, but..." He lied. "The pirates come here too. Not often, But enough. They leave people alone if they don't cause trouble. If you're seen helping someone they don't like, they remember. Ethan now understood why the merchants had ignored her. It wasn't just selfishness, it was survival. "And you've been on your own since then?" he asked. She nodded. There were other survivors at first, but they left, or disappeared. I stayed because I couldn't risk moving with Lena. I found empty storage rooms to sleep in. I begged for scraps. Sometimes I stole. But the last few days, I couldn't find enough even for her. Ethan leaned against the wall, running a hand over his face. She wasn't exaggerating. She had been living one step away from disaster for months. "You know," he said slowly, "if the pirates come here and see you, they might take you too." Her eyes darkened. "I know. That's why I stay out of sight." Ethan thought for a moment. Leaving her here was not an option, not for him. But taking her and her sister away wouldn't be simple. Pirates didn't like losing what they thought was theirs, even if it was just 2 refugees. "There's a place you can go," Kaylee said suddenly, surprising him. "A colony where survivors from my world live. Hidden in an asteroid belt, far from the main lanes. I've heard they help people like me, but it's dangerous to get there." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous how?" "The route goes through unpatrolled space. Pirates, smugglers, sometimes even patrols from the empires. They don't like ships that can't explain why they're there." "You've thought about this a lot," Ethan said. She nodded. "Every day." He could see the determination in her eyes. She wasn't just asking for rescue, she was asking for a chance to stand again. "All right," Ethan said finally. "I'll take you there." Kaylee's eyes widened. "You would? Why?" Ethan gave a faint smile. "Because you asked me for milk for your sister, not for yourself. That says a lot." She looked like she wanted to say something more, but a sudden sound from the hallway made them both freeze, a faint scrape of boots on metal. Ethan moved to the door and opened it slightly. A tall figure in a dark coat stood at the end of the corridor, speaking into a small comm device. The man glanced their way for just a second before turning back down the hall. Ethan closed the door quietly. "We might have been noticed." "Noticed?" Kaylee's voice held a trace of fear. "Yeah," Ethan said, "and if it's who I think it is, we don't have long before trouble finds us." He pulled a small data pad from his pocket and tapped into the station's internal map. "My ship's 2 corridors over. We'll have to move quickly." "Now?" Kaylee asked. "Now," Ethan said. "Get ready." She adjusted Lena in her arms, wrapping the cloth tighter so the baby's head was shielded. Ethan cracked the door open and led the way. They kept to the side passages, moving quickly but quietly. The sound of voices and footsteps echoed from behind them, getting closer. As they rounded a corner, Ethan saw 2 men ahead, both wearing light body armor with red markings. Pirates. They were scanning the crowd, their eyes sharp and searching. Ethan pulled Kaylee into an alcove, pressing a finger to his lips. They waited, holding their breath until the pirates moved past. Then they slipped out and hurried toward the docking bay. But Ethan knew this wasn't over. Whoever had spotted them earlier had likely already sent word. If they didn't make it to his ship in the next few minutes, they might not leave at all. And judging by the faint alarms starting to echo through the station, time was already running out. The docking bay was only 2 corridors away. But to Ethan, it felt like the far side of the galaxy. The station's faint alarm pulsed through the walls, a steady warning that something was wrong. A red light flashed at the edges of the ceiling, casting the narrow halls in a dull, uneasy glow. Kaylee clutched her sister tighter as they moved, her eyes darting to every shadow. Ethan kept a steady pace, not too fast to draw attention, but quick enough to stay ahead of whoever was after them. "Stay close," Ethan said without looking back. "I am," she whispered, her voice shaking. They passed a small cargo lift, and Ethan caught movement in his peripheral vision, two more pirates stepping out from a side corridor. Their armor had the same faded red markings as the others, and both carried short rifles slung at their sides. They didn't see Ethan yet, but they were moving in the same direction. Ethan guided Kaylee toward a service hatch halfway down the hall. "In here," he said. The hatch led to a narrow maintenance passage that ran parallel to the main walkway. The air was warmer here, the hum of the station's machinery louder. The walls were lined with cables and rusted pipes, and the floor was a thin grate that rattled under their feet. "This doesn't go straight to the docking bay," Kaylee said, glancing around nervously. "No," Ethan replied, "but it keeps us out of sight." They walked in silence for a few minutes, turning corners where the passage allowed. Kaylee's breathing was quick, but she didn't complain. Ethan could see the strain in her arms from carrying her sister, but she never loosened her hold. As they neared the next hatch, Ethan stopped and listened. Muffled voices came from the other side. "Pirates again." "We'll block the bay," one voice said. "If they try to leave, we'll catch them." "And if they slip out another way?" the second voice asked. "Then the boss will deal with them personally." Ethan's jaw tightened. The pirates were already moving to cut them off. He pulled back and motioned for Kaylee to follow him further down the passage. "Change of plan," he said quietly. "We're going to the bay from the underside." "Underside?" Kaylee asked. "Yeah, the maintenance tunnels under the docking platforms. Risky, but faster." They continued through the dim passage until they reached a small ladder leading down. Ethan went first, the metal rungs cold under his hands. Kaylee followed carefully, holding her sister with one arm while gripping the ladder with the other. At the bottom, the tunnel opened into a low, wide space beneath the docking bay floor. Here, the sound of engines and machinery was louder, and the air smelled faintly of fuel. Faint strips of light ran along the edges, revealing crates, tools, and loose wires. "Stay low," Ethan said, crouching as he moved forward. Through the gaps in the floor above, they could see the boots of people walking in the docking bay. Some boots were heavy and worn. The pirates. Kaylee kept her eyes on the narrow path, following close behind. The baby stirred faintly in her arms, but didn't cry, as if sensing the need for silence. They were almost beneath Ethan's ship when a loud clang echoed from behind them. Ethan spun around. A pirate had entered the tunnel from the ladder they'd used. The man's eyes locked on them instantly. "Hey!" the pirate shouted, reaching for his weapon. "Run!" Ethan barked. Kaylee didn't hesitate. She ran after Ethan, the grate floor rattling under their feet. The pirate's footsteps thundered behind them, and a shot rang out, sparking against a metal pipe just to Kaylee's left. Ethan grabbed the edge of a low platform and pulled himself up, then reached down for Kaylee. She handed him her sister first, then climbed up with his help. Another shot rang out, but this one hit the floor far behind them. They scrambled onto a narrow catwalk that led directly to the underside of Ethan's ship. The landing ramp was closed, but Ethan keyed a small remote from his belt, and the ramp began to lower with a hiss of hydraulics. "Go!" he urged. Kaylee ran up the ramp, still holding her sister close. Ethan followed, and the moment they were inside, he hit the control to close the ramp again. The sound of the ramp locking echoed like a promise. They were in, but they weren't safe yet. The ship's sensors lit up immediately, detecting movement all over the docking bay. Pirates were converging on their position. Ethan jumped into the pilot's seat, powering up the engines. The low rumble vibrated through the deck. "Strap in," he called to Kaylee. She sat in the co-pilot's chair, carefully securing her sister in her lap. Her wide eyes were fixed on the view ahead, the bay doors slowly opening, revealing the black of space beyond. "Hold tight," Ethan warned. As the ship lifted from the platform, shouts came over the docking bay comm system. "Unauthorized. Departure! Stand down immediately!" Two pirate ships, small but fast, detached from their berths and turned toward Ethan's vessel. Their engines flared and weapon systems came online. "They're chasing us," Kaylee said, her voice tight. "Yeah," Ethan replied, hands steady on the controls. "But they'll have to catch us first." He pushed the throttle forward, and the ship surged toward the open bay doors. The pursuing ships fired warning shots, bright streaks of light passing close enough to make the hull shudder. Ethan wove between them, slipping through the narrow opening into open space. Once free, he angled the ship sharply away from the station. The pirate ships followed, their engines roaring in the darkness. Ethan's eyes flicked to the navigation. "Display calculating distances and speeds. We're not going to outgun them," he said. "But maybe we can outrun them." "Maybe?" Kaylee asked. "Trust me," Ethan said. He diverted extra power to the engines, pushing them close to their limit. The stars streaked by as they accelerated. The pirates stayed close for a while, their weapons firing in bursts, but slowly their distance began to grow. Finally, the sensors showed them dropping away, too far to keep up without burning out their drives. Ethan exhaled slowly, leaning back in his seat. "We're clear," he said. Kaylee let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She looked at Ethan with something between relief and gratitude. "Thank you for not leaving us." Ethan glanced at her. "We're not at your colony yet, but we'll get there." Out the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly ahead, and somewhere in that vast darkness was the place Kaylee had been dreaming of, a home where her sister could grow without fear. The stars outside shifted as Ethan's ship entered the darker stretch of unpatrolled space. There were no beacons here, no traffic lanes, no rescue stations, just empty black dotted with faint light. The navigation display blinked a warning. No registered safety routes ahead. Ethan ignored it. Kaylee's colony was somewhere beyond this void, and they didn't have time to circle around safer paths. Kaylee sat in the co-pilot's seat, holding her sister who was now sleeping peacefully. The warmth of the nutrient milk had given the baby some color back in her cheeks. Still, Kaylee's eyes remained alert, scanning the void as if danger could appear at any second. "How far?" she asked quietly. 2, maybe 3 days, if nothing slows us down," Ethan replied, checking the readings. "And if something slows us down?" He gave a small shrug. "Then we deal with it." She didn't press further, but he could see she was thinking about the pirates, or worse. Out here, worse was always a possibility. For a while, the only sounds were the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep of the navigation system. Kaylee shifted slightly in her seat. "You've been to a lot of places, haven't you?" she asked. "More than I can count," Ethan said. "Why help me? You could have walked away at the station and no one would have stopped you." He glanced at her. "I've seen too many people walk away when they could have helped. Didn't feel like joining them." Her expression softened, and she looked down at her sister. "I'll pay you back. I meant it." "I believe you," Ethan said simply. Hours passed, and the darkness outside seemed endless. Then the sensors chimed, drawing Ethan's attention. A faint signal was coming from ahead. No official ID tag, just a ping repeating every few seconds. "What is it?" Kaylee asked. "Not sure," Ethan said, narrowing his eyes at the display. "Could be a distress signal, or bait." He adjusted their course slightly to keep distance, but still keep the source in sight. As they got closer, the ship's lights caught the drifting outline of another vessel. Its hull was scorched, and one side looked torn open. "Someone's in trouble," Kaylee said, leaning forward. "Maybe," Ethan said. "Or maybe someone wants us to think that." He ran a scan. No life signs detected. "Empty," he muttered. "But there's heat in the engines, too fresh for an abandoned wreck." Kaylee frowned. "What does that mean?" "Means someone might be hiding," Ethan said. "Pirates sometimes use dead ships to ambush passing vessels." As if to confirm his words, the sensors suddenly lit up. 2 ships uncloaking from behind the wreck. They were small but armed, engines flaring bright as they moved to intercept. Pirates? Kaylee guessed. Definitely, Ethan said, his hands already moving over the controls. Hold on! The pirate ship split apart, one moving to cut off their path, the other circling to the rear. Weapons locked onto Ethan's ship, and a warning tone filled the cockpit. What do we do? Kaylee asked. We don't fight, Ethan said. We run. He slammed the throttle forward, engines roaring as the ship surged ahead. The lead pirate opened fire, streaks of light flashing past the cockpit. Ethan weaved through them, but a glancing hit made the hull shudder. Shields holding, he muttered, checking the readout. For now. The second pirate ship fired from behind, forcing Ethan to roll the ship sharply. Kaylee clung to her sister, bracing herself against the seat. I thought you said nothing would slow us down, she shouted over the alarms. I said if something slowed us down, we'd deal with it, Ethan corrected. The pirates pressed the chase, matching every turn. Ethan's fingers moved fast over the controls, diverting extra power to the engines. We can't keep this up forever, he said. Need to lose them in the drift. The drift? Kaylee asked. A field of ice and rock fragments about 20,000 clicks ahead. Sensors don't work well inside it. Good place to disappear. Minutes. Later, the ship entered the edge of the drift. Massive chunks of frozen water and rock floated in the darkness, some as large as small moons, others no bigger than a chair. They reflected faint light from distant stars, casting strange shadows across the cockpit. This is dangerous, Kaylee said, eyes wide. So is getting shot at, Ethan replied, maneuvering between two spinning ice chunks. The pirates followed, them in, their weapons firing sporadically. But the field forced them to slow down, dodging the same hazards Ethan used as cover. He slipped behind a cluster of ice, cut the engines for a moment, and let the pirates pass by. Where did they go? One pirate voice crackled faintly over comms. Keep scanning, another replied. They can't be far. Ethan waited until they moved deeper into the drift before quietly steering away. Once they were clear, he reignited the engines and angled the ship toward their original course. We lost them, he said finally. Kaylee let out a long breath of relief. I thought they had us. So did they, Ethan said with a small grin. The rest of the day passed without further trouble. Kaylee spent time caring for her sister, and Ethan kept the ship steady. The navigation system estimated they would reach the asteroid belt where her colony might be hiding by the end of the next day. As the ship cruised on, Kaylee spoke again. When we get there, will you stay? For a bit, Ethan said. Long enough to make sure you're safe. She nodded, but her eyes held something he couldn't quite read. Hope mixed with uncertainty. Later, when Kaylee and her sister slept in the crew quarters, Ethan sat in the cockpit, watching the stars. He knew the pirates wouldn't give up easily, and he had a feeling the final stretch to the colony would be the hardest part of the journey, because in unpatrolled space, when someone wanted to stop you, they usually did it at the gates of where you were headed. The navigation display blinked with a faint green light. The asteroid belt was close. Ethan leaned forward, adjusting the ship's heading to pass through a narrow opening in the rocks. Beyond this belt was the rumored hiding place of Kaylee's people, but he knew such places didn't survive long by being easy to find. Kaylee sat beside him, her sister asleep in her arms. The baby's breathing was slow and steady now, a welcome change from the weak, shallow breaths Ethan had heard when they first met. Kaylee's eyes stayed fixed on the belt ahead, her voice quiet when she spoke. This is it, she said. The colony is supposed to be hidden inside one of the bigger asteroids. My mother used to tell me about it. She said our people made it there before everything happened. Ethan glanced at her. If it's that well hidden, they won't. Let just anyone get close. I know, Kaylee replied, but if we send the right signal, they'll respond. Before Ethan could answer, the ship's sensors picked up movement. 3 ships ahead, hiding between the larger asteroids. Their silhouettes were sharp, angular, and clearly armed. His stomach sank. "Not welcoming ships," he muttered. Kaylee tensed. "Pirates?" "Close enough," Ethan said. "Probably guarding the entrance. Could be the same group from the station." One of the ships moved forward, blocking their path. A message crackled over the comm system, the voice deep and mocking. "Unidentified vessel, cut your engines. This is restricted space. Pay the toll or turn around." "Toll?" Ethan repeated under his breath. Kaylee looked at him, confused. "They're charging people to pass?" "More like robbing," Ethan said, flicking off the comm so they couldn't hear him. "If we stop, they'll take more than credits. We're not stopping." The pirate ship's weapons lit up, locking onto their hull. The other two moved, in from the sides. Ethan's mind worked fast. Fighting them directly was risky, but turning back meant Kaylee would never reach her colony. He looked at her. "Strap in and hold on to Lena. This is going to get rough." Kaylee's grip tightened on her sister. "What are you going to do?" "Something they won't expect," he said. He pushed the throttle, not away from the ships, but straight toward the one blocking them. Alarms blared in the cockpit, warning of incoming fire. The pirate hesitated, clearly not expecting the small cargo vessel to charge. "Brace!" Ethan shouted. At the last second, he veered hard to the left, skimming dangerously close to the pirate ship's hull. The sudden maneuver threw off their aim, and their shot streaked harmlessly into empty space. The other two ships scrambled to adjust, but Ethan used the moment to dive into the asteroid belt. Giant chunks of rock and ice spun slowly around them, forcing the larger pirate ships to slow down or risk smashing into the debris. "Are we safe?" Kaylee asked, breathless. "Not yet," Ethan said, weaving through a cluster of smaller asteroids. "But we just evened the playing field. The pirates gave chase, their weapons flashing, but the belt's thick cover made targeting difficult. Ethan darted between two massive rocks, using their shadows to break line of sight. "Signal the colony," he told Kaylee. "If they're in there, they need to know we're not pirates." Kaylee adjusted the comm panel, inputting a sequence of tones and pulses. "Sending it now," she said. For a moment, nothing happened. The pirates were still closing in, and Ethan could hear the faint vibration of impacts as stray shots clipped the asteroid walls. Then, a new voice broke through the static on their comm system. Calm, clear, and authoritative. "This is the refuge of Solari survivors. Identify yourself immediately." Kaylee's eyes widened and she leaned toward the mic. "I am Kaylee, of Solari. My sister and I seek sanctuary. Please, we're being chased." The voice returned after a pause. "Stand by." A sudden flare of light appeared ahead, two sleek silver ships emerging from a dark gap between the asteroids. Unlike the pirates, these vessels were fast and well-armed, moving with precision. They swept past Ethan's ship, heading straight for the attackers. The pirates didn't stay to fight. Realizing they were outmatched, they turned sharply and retreated deeper into the belt. The silver ships didn't pursue far. They simply ensured the threat was gone before returning to escort. "Ethan, follow us," the voice said over comms. Ethan exhaled in relief, steering the ship behind their escorts. Kaylee clutched her sister tighter, her eyes bright with something he hadn't seen before. Hope without fear. The silver ships led them through a twisting path in the asteroid belt. It seemed random at first, but Ethan soon realized it was carefully chosen. One wrong turn and his ship would have been crushed. Finally, they approached a massive asteroid with an artificial opening carved into its side. As they entered, the darkness gave way to light. An enormous cavern opened before them, large enough to hold a small city. Structures clung to the inner walls, connected by glowing walkways. Ships of all shapes and sizes were docked at platforms built into the rock. "Welcome to Haven," the voice said. Ethan guided the ship toward a docking pad indicated by his escort. As they landed, Kaylee stared out the viewport, her mouth slightly open. "It's real," she whispered. "I thought..." Maybe it was just a story. Looks like a good place to end a story, Ethan said, powering down the engines. No, Kaylee said quietly, shaking her head. This is where it begins? Ethan didn't reply, but he knew she was right. She had survived more than most people twice her age, and this place might give her the chance to grow into the promise she had made him back in the market. But as he glanced toward the docking bay entrance, where armed guards waited to question them, he also knew the journey wasn't over. Places like this didn't let outsiders stay without proving themselves first, and somewhere out there, the pirates who had chased them would still be looking. The moment Ethan's ship touched down inside the cavernous docking bay of Haven, armed guards approached. Their silver armor gleamed under the overhead lights, and each carried a compact but clearly powerful weapon. They moved with discipline, surrounding the ship without looking hostile. Just careful. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. State your names and purpose. Kaylee stood beside Ethan at the top of the ramp, still holding her. Sister. Her voice trembled at first but grew steadier as she spoke. I am Kaylee of the Solari colony of Enveris. This is my sister, Lena. We seek sanctuary. This man saved our lives. The guard studied her for a moment, then glanced at Ethan. And you? Ethan Cole, cargo pilot. I brought them here after pirates attacked the station where they were hiding. The guard gave a short nod. You will both come with us. The council will decide. They were led through the vast interior of Haven. The colony was unlike anything Ethan had seen. Homes built into the curved rock walls, glowing gardens growing, under artificial lights, workshops buzzing with quiet activity. The air was fresh, filtered through hidden vents, and the sound of running water echoed faintly from somewhere deep within the asteroid. Kaylee looked around in awe, her eyes wide. Lena stirred in her arms but didn't cry. For the first time, the baby's breathing sounded strong. Eventually, they reached a large chamber carved directly into the rock. A semicircle of older Solari, dressed in robes of muted colors, sat on raised seats. The council. One of them, a woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, leaned forward. Kaylee of Envaris, we have heard your name before. Your family was well known to us. Kaylee swallowed hard. My parents, they're gone, taken by pirates. A murmur passed through the council. Another member, an older man, spoke. And you, Ethan Cole, why risk yourself to bring these children here? Ethan shrugged slightly. Because no one else would. I didn't want to see them die on that station. The silver-haired woman studied him closely. Few outsiders have entered Haven. Fewer still leave. Do you expect reward for this? No, Ethan said plainly. Just wanted to get them somewhere safe. The council conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, the woman nodded. Kaylee and Lena may stay. Ethan Cole, you will be given supplies and free passage when you choose to depart. But know this, if you remain, you must work for the good of the colony. Ethan glanced at Kaylee. She looked back at him, something unspoken passing between them. Then he turned to the council. I'll stay a while. Make sure they're settled. And so he did. In the weeks that followed, Ethan repaired cargo haulers, trained younger pilots, and even joined patrols around the outer belt. Kaylee was given a small room with access to the gardens, where she grew food and helped care for the younger children. Lena grew stronger each day, her cries now healthy and loud. Time passed quickly in Haven. Weeks became months. One evening, as they sat in the quiet garden dome, Kaylee turned to Ethan. I will repay you one day, she said, her voice steady. Not just for the milk, for everything. Ethan smiled faintly. You already have. You're alive. That's enough. But Kaylee shook her head. No. When I'm grown, I will make it right. Years rolled by. Ethan eventually left Haven to continue his work as a pilot, though he returned often. Kylie grew tall and strong, her pale lavender skin now healthy, her eyes sharper. She trained with the colony's defense forces, learning to fly their sleek silver ships. Lena grew into a bright, curious child who adored her sister and followed her everywhere. The pirates who had once hunted Kaylee's people didn't disappear. Their raids continued across unpatrolled space, and Haven's defense fleet often intercepted them. Kaylee became one of their best pilots, known for her quick thinking and fearless maneuvers. One day, many years after Ethan had first met her, a distress call went out. A human convoy had been ambushed in deep space, trapped by the same pirate faction that had destroyed Kaylee's homeworld. Ethan's ship was among them, damaged and unable to break free. In the chaos of the battle, a new fleet appeared. Sleek, silver ships sweeping in from hyperspace. At their head was a single fighter, moving with precision and speed that left the pirates scrambling. The comm system in Ethan's cockpit crackled to life, and a familiar voice came through. "This is Captain Kaylee of the Haven Defense Fleet," she said. "Don't worry, Ethan. I told you I'd pay you back when I was grown." Ethan felt a smile spread across his face, even as relief flooded through him. "Took you long enough," he said into the comm. The battle was fierce but short. Under Kaylee's command, the pirates were driven back, their ships crippled or forced to flee. When the last of them jumped away, Kaylee's fleet formed an escort around the convoy, guiding them safely to the nearest secure outpost. Later, when Ethan stepped off his ship, Kaylee was waiting for him in her silver captain's uniform. She looked different now, confident, commanding, but her eyes were still the same as the girl he had met years ago in that dim market corner. "You saved my life," she said, "and my sister's. Now I've saved yours. I'd say we're even," Ethan chuckled. "Maybe, but I've got a feeling you're not done yet." Kaylee smiled. "No, not by a long shot." And as the stars glittered above them, Ethan realized that the starving girl who had once asked only for milk had grown into a force that could change the fate of entire worlds.